Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with Rare Gem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to energize your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy-Maxfield.
And I'm Dr. Cheryl-Watkins-Moore, Director of Bioscience Entrepreneurial Inclusion for BioSTL.
Fantastic.
Hello there.
Hi. So we're back to building momentum for our new season.
Yes.
And we have a full lineup of fabulous guests, interviews, shows, whatever you want to call them, we got them.
If you guys have not been listening to this fifth season, it has been phenomenal.
Lots of fun.
Yes.
I think we're hitting our stride, which our listeners, of course, will let us know because they'll keep tuning in. Mm-hmm. But according to all of our statistics, our listenership is growing, and we're making an impact thanks to you all helping us spread the word.
Thank you, guys.
So we want to thank and acknowledge our founding sponsors, BioSTL and CET, for their renewed support. You can discover more about the great things they are up to at our website and theirs. CET and BioSTL have Square One, BioSTL Fundamentals, the Online Startup Toolkit, Global STL, and
all
Inclusion Initiative. It goes on and on, so check them all out.
Yes.
And as more folks are tuning in, it's because you're sharing, so help us spread the word. You can share new episodes. You can find us on iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, LinkedIn, our website. And
wherever you are, we want to be.
Absolutely. And as entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk says, voice is the future, so shout it out.
Shout it out. Well, today we have a great couple of guests here, and I'm going to start with a little teaser.
Really?
Yes. It could be said that a degree in engineering is synonymous with success.
My husband would say so.
Yes, my sister as well.
He has always said that if we had children, they could be anything they wanted in life after they became an engineer. He's very open-minded.
Keep it consistent, right? A recent study found that engineering graduates are more than 7% more likely to be in full-time employment within 6 months of graduating than those in other subjects.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So if you want a job and you're in college, y'all should be looking at going down that engineering route.
I went the marriage route.
Yeah. But salary-wise, the average annual income for a chartered engineer is more than double the mean wage. Y'all hear me? Double the mean wage.
And then if you actually own the business on top of it and get to take home the profits as well.
Hey, there you go. Engineering grads brandish an impressive skill set that can make a difference in the lives of individuals and to our society as a whole. Abby Huddy, spacecraft structures engineer at Airbus, says, the whole idea of being an engineer is about solving a problem that hasn't been solved yet or solving it in a way that it hasn't been solved before. What does that take us back to? Is that like entrepreneurship? So when we come back, we will meet the dynamic duo, our husband and wife team that blends engineering excellence with enterprise. They do so while dedicating their lives towards the advancement of young and emerging engineering talent. They are also community leaders and pace setters for our region's growth. I met these individuals a couple years ago, and I am so impressed with them, and not just for what they do from a professional side, but it is about their interest and giving back to the community and making sure that, you know, all of our children rise to their potential. So without further ado, we're going to come back with Abe and Nicole Adewale of ABNA Engineering. Stay listening.
CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, is a proud founding sponsor of this Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. We want you to know all about the great things they are up to. CET is in the business of entrepreneur development, offering a variety of programming to meet the training and technical needs of early-stage entrepreneurs. These programs include the Square One Ignite and Bootcamp training program, Level Next, technical assistance, workshops, and other educational programming. To learn more about CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, visit CETSTL.com. And for your renewed and continuing support, CET, we say thank you.
Nicole Adewale with ABNA Engineering Thinking entrepreneurially is thinking about how you can leverage resources to help other people, which in turn serves your own self-interest.
As Cheryl said, today we're joined by Abe and Nicole Adewale, the founders of ABNA Engineering. They're a civil instructional engineering firm. So for those of you who aren't married to an engineer or aren't an engineer, that's industrial and educational, healthcare, commercial projects, all sorts of things from surveying and geotech, construction management, testing, inspection, major projects, all the things that it takes to turn something from an idea into a fully fledged, fully engineered project. So these guys mean business. And they've been meaning business since 1994.
Long time.
Long time. After a decade of service in the Illinois Department of Transportation, where both of them really worked on creating the business idea and bringing it into fruition. So Abe and Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I know you've spent time with Cheryl before, but as we were saying when you came in, just the gift you're giving our listeners is tremendous by making time again to speak with us. So thank you again for being here. So tell us, we've clearly hammered home that engineering has given you all a foundation from which to build your lives and your company. But what did it mean for you all to leave school and be working for IDOT and then be on the pathway to becoming entrepreneurs?
Well, so engineering has been the ultimate platform for us. Going to school, studying engineering.
So, Abe, were you interested in engineering as a kid?
Well, fortunately for me, I had a father who was in the engineering business.
Okay.
And so I had a father, an uncle, and others to look up to, but they were not business people. My mom, on the other hand, who barely had a 2-year college degree, was the business mogul of the family.
Oh.
And
tell us more. What type of business was she in?
Everything.
I used to call her the hustle lady because she was a distributor for Coca-Cola products. She had a sewing business where she delivered uniforms for schools in Lagos, Nigeria. I was kind of a quasi-partner of hers. Because
you were the one on the side. You were the side hustler, too. Right.
I was responsible for coordinating. She did distributorship for a friend of hers who had a bakery. And we would pick up all of the baked products, and I was responsible for distributing that to
So
clients.
you grew up in Nigeria?
Yes.
Okay.
Till the age of 16.
Okay.
When I moved to D.C. to be with my dad.
Oh, wow.
Well, and we always say that when you invest in women, in their education and their capacity to take care of their families, that entire communities flourish. And I never met your mother, but she sounds like the kind of woman who could make a community flourish.
Absolutely.
She definitely is.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, Nicole, tell us how you decided to take that route in engineering. What was your family background?
So in terms of engineering, nobody. I come from a line of, we'll say, mostly educators and attorneys, and then my grandmother was an entrepreneur. I'll come back to that. And my dad worked for a major distributorship for most of his career. And so for me, wanting to be an engineer came from my play.
Oh, wow. That's
I don't know
important
if you're
to remember.
familiar with Kevin Carroll's The Red Rubber Ball at Work.
Yes.
And so I've realized later on in life that me wanting to play with mud pies and playing with silly putty and Lincoln logs and all of those kinds of things were the things that I really was drawn to when I was a kid. I also played with Barbies. I also ripped the legs off, put them back on. And then
You tinkered.
I tinkered. And then in middle school, we at Brittany Woods Middle School in Youth City.
That's
I
right.
had to throw that in.
You are a St. Louisan.
I am.
Yes.
I took a technical drawing class that I did pretty well in. I thought about architecture. Then in high school, I got into Inroads, which is to bring minority students into either engineering or business.
Yes.
And civil engineering was the closest thing to architecture. But as I continued to study it and understand what it was, I said, well, that's a good idea for me.
That's really very cool.
That's huge.
So you said you had an entrepreneur in your family as well. Tell us about Grandma.
Both of my grandparents, so my father's parents. In fact, for those who are familiar with St. Louis, my grandfather had the most, or if not all, of the shoe shine concessions at Lambert St. Louis Airport in the 60s, 70s, early 80s. And then they owned a small liquor and convenience store called Hutcherson's Packaged Liquor. It was at the corner of Thomas and Jefferson. Right now, it's a vacant lot across from the fire training facility on Jefferson. And so, and they had some other small businesses before that, but for many years, they were a central hub of the community because for some people who were not only economically challenged and therefore transportation challenged, and the elderly would send their kids down the street to pick up this, that, or the other. And so I just watched that growing up. They let me, like he helped his mom on occasion. I'd get to stand behind the candy counter. I probably ate more than I sold.
Well, yeah, and I helped Dad sell some flowers in my time, so I know what that's like when you've got a family business that you're part of.
Exactly.
And so engineering, whether in your blood from Dad, and my husband would say he's the first degreed engineer in his family, but it sort of runs through the bloodline before the official degree. And then seeing entrepreneurship play out, did you have a sense that entrepreneurship was also in your future, or was that something that was sort of behind the scenes for a while?
That's something we had always anticipated getting into.
Really? The two of you?
The two of us, in our ways, we had experimented with different entrepreneurial opportunities that wasn't exactly in line with what we wanted to do. And after a few of those things did not pan out, we looked at each other. We were at my brother's graduation in Charlottesville, Virginia, and said, wait a minute, what are we doing? We're trying to partner with everybody else, and we got two burgeoning entrepreneurs here. Why don't we put our heads together? And right there in Virginia, we conceptualized this company, ABNA Engineering.
Wow.
And said, this is something we're already doing professionally. Well, why don't we take a leap of faith and explore the opportunities out there?
See, I think that's what's really important because as Christy and I talk to and work with new, I don't mean emerging entrepreneurs. Thank you. That's a great term. Sometimes people think, I got to quit my job and jump out and do this,
Or I have to partner with other people.
Right.
Like we encourage people to work together, but that doesn't mean you necessarily, Abe's like, my partner's sitting right next to me.
Right.
I didn't even realize it,
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So what were you guys doing? You were working at a full-time job before. Talk to us about that.
We were both working for the Illinois Department of Transportation in different departments, but essentially the same thing. We were engineers. He was a resident engineer. Actually, at the time, we were both resident engineers, which means...
Were you all married then, or... Is that how you all met?
Yeah, that's a whole different story. So,
that'll be part two.
Staying on this particular line, we were both working. We were married at that point, and we were just looking at the opportunities. Not that there weren't opportunities for advancement, but being in a public entity, you have to go through these stages and levels and what have you.
Right.
And
they're not nimble.
Exactly. And so we said, well, why don't we try this? Because we were in our mid-20s, and we said, if it doesn't work out, we can always find something else. But let's do it now while our risk is low. Now, here's the thing. Not only were we married, we already had one kid.
Oh, okay.
So relatively low risk, but not no low.
Yeah, it ain't that low because you still got a mouth to feed. Y'all can eat anything. Well, that baby has to eat food, right?
Well, you got to take into consideration you're trying your very best to start a new path in life, and you have a child. You don't have insurance.
Right.
You're concerned about how you're going to pay the mortgage and all of this other challenges that looms in the future. But at the same time, we looked around us and saw that there was a lot of publicly funded infrastructure programs that were on the horizon. They were going to D.C. trying to get funding for things like the airport. MSD was about to embark on a big program.
Metrolink.
Metrolink was a big thing, and we said now is the time. If you're going to do it, you better do it now while the opportunity is out there.
And so was that something that you were able to build while working full time, or was this one of those just take the leap of faith kind of?
So she tells the story best, but we took about 3 years and saved about $50,000 of our own private funding because I was just not interested in going out and taking out loans to get this venture going. And at the time, we figured, as she aptly put it, if it doesn't work out, we're engineers. We can always get a job.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So we took that leap of faith. She left the organization before I did.
Okay, so somebody stayed to get the insurance.
We needed
at least for a little while.
Exactly.
But there was a gap, and so when we talk about being entrepreneurs, there is risk that is involved, and so for us, that risk eventually was not having insurance. He had a company car, and we had one family car, so we went down to one car with a kid and trying to build all of these things. So there was a good amount of risk in the interim. And then also later, as he's talking about, we saved anywhere from 30 to 50% of our disposable income for those 3 years to build up what amounted to at least my full salary. I was
going to say a year's worth of somebody's salary.
Absolutely.
Right?
So that we could be comfortable. We still lived very modestly on that income, but it was there so that we could do the same things. But then it wasn't until we actually brought on people that we ended up having to get loans or lines of credit. But as long as it was us, we were able to support ourselves.
And I think that's a big thing. Sometimes people are not, they don't take that structured path. It's like, okay, like you just talked about, we consciously made sure that we were saving a certain percentage of our disposable income because we had a target.
Right.
How did you make that? Because you guys were working on the real job, I should say, right? And then at the same time, you were getting contracts for your new business, right?
Right.
So how did you all make the decision, this is the time to really flip, and Abe, you're done?
So right about this time, we realized that with all of this public infrastructure funds that were becoming available, we needed to do something that was significant. And that's something that was significant was that somebody needed to get out there, start introducing our company to prospective clients, doing all of the networking and putting us in position so that when I came out,
so I'm laughing because Nicole is just sitting up here pointing at herself.
Yes, make no doubt that when he says someone, he means Nicole.
But
Charmer.
It was best of all fit because she was good at interacting with people, and as a matter of fact, we still say it till today. We always ask her, "How many friends did you make today?" Because she is the type of person step into an elevator before the elevator gets to the third floor. She was best friends with you.
Awesome.
So this was an ideal partnership. I'm more technical, more reserved. And so she will go out there and form the relationships. As a matter of fact, the very first client we had was a black architect right there on Euclid and Delmar.
Awesome.
I still, till today, I don't know how she came about this man. But
she's also giving him that look like, I told you that story 500 times.
It was Uncle Melvin. So it was about utilizing family relationships. In fact, my godfather, Melvin Harrington Sr., who was actually one of the founders of Gateway Bank.
Oh, wow.
This was one of his friends. And he made some initial introductions for us into the industry. We utilized his friends, and then also my late uncle, Hilton Reed, who's an attorney. It was their friends who were in our industry that they made some introductions. But like Abe said, then it is getting out, being present, going to receptions, going to different meetings and interacting until people build up that trust and comfort with you.
Sure.
And again, building on, no, you don't necessarily need a partnership, but to really launch a business, you have to have at least two people, because there's always one person that's going to be focused on the heart of the business, and then there's going to be another person that's going to be focused on advancing the business.
But that means you have to be self-aware, as we always say, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each member of the team, which is the two of you guys, and leveraging that, as well as leveraging your connections.
Yeah.
So
when you talk about strengths, given the fact that she was in a prior life was a politician.
I did not know that.
Yeah, she was a councilwoman in Blackjack for about 6 years.
I learned so many. Every time I'm with Nicole, I swear I learned something different about you. That is great.
And that brought a lot of very useful value, because she was around a lot of people that were making decisions that impacted what we wanted to do. And she made the most strategic introductions for me in introducing me to a gentleman by the name of George Tomasi. I did not know who this gentleman was, but she said, you got to have lunch with George.
She was setting up your appointment.
I tell people all the time, this is the cheapest, it wasn't a lunch, it was a dinner, cheapest dinner I've ever paid for. It had a glass of Coke and a plate of salad. And the gentleman turned out to be a former executive vice president at Mallinckrodt, and was a heavyweight in the engineering industry here in St. Louis and in the state.
Former president of the Engineers Club, and former chair of membership for the Missouri Society of Professional Engineers. So he knows everybody.
George basically told me, said, and I told him all of our woes. I've tried to reach out to this individual. They're not taking my calls. I can't get past the gatekeepers.
Right.
George says, just call this person and call this person. He said, tell him George said to call.
There you go.
And then I will call the secretary, will take the message. 5 minutes later, Abe, I heard you called. It's like, wow, I've been trying to reach you for like a year.
Right. That salad and drink paid off, right?
That's amazing. My goodness. You guys have given us so much to work with, and we're going to come right back and dive back in.
BioSTL is a proud founding sponsor of this entrepreneurially thinking podcast, and we want you to know all about the great things they are up to. BioSTL Fundamentals is an entrepreneur development program designed to support early would-be entrepreneurs in the life sciences in St. Louis. The program provides a one-on-one customized business learning experience for each participant. You can learn more about BioSTL Fundamentals by visiting biostl.org. And for your renewed and continuing support, BioSTL, we say thank you.
Abe-adewale with ABNA Engineering. Thinking entrepreneurially means looking for opportunities that are not available yet or that nobody else has tapped into, and finding solutions for those opportunities.
So wearing my trainer and educator hat, when you were talking, I was hearing all these things I try to teach folks, like asset mapping, meaning like looking around at all the hidden assets in your life, whether that's your uncle and his network of people, or it's your friends and family, or it's your past life as a politician and being able to leverage relationships you made over here to over there. You know, we often talk about bootstrapping as friends, family, and fools, right? But even if folks don't necessarily make an investment in your company, making an investment in you through relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this idea that you essentially managed a portfolio of risk. I came across this idea years ago. that entrepreneurs are not more risk tolerant than the average person, but they do manage a risk portfolio with more diligence. And so I just had to name those things. The educator in me just had to name those things because I just find it really interesting.
So cool is that they are married, guys.
They are.
And they're still married. How many years?
25 years on this is a quiz.
March 13th.
You get to live in the house.
2 weeks from now, I need to be doing something special.
And you have 3 children? 4 children. Yes.
We have a working adult, a college student, a high school senior, and an 8th grader.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Y'all got it spread out.
Yes.
And any
spread the
entrepreneurs?
risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're hoping that they all trend in that direction. Our oldest is a practicing architect.
Congratulations.
The second one, she's about to finish her engineering degree in civil engineering at SIUE.
Is that going to be the succession plan there for her?
Not sure. Then the third one actually is interested in cybersecurity.
Very good.
And you know some of the same people I know, so you can guess who has influenced her. It's interacting with those people.
Absolutely.
And then
great role models, I'm sure.
The youngest one, we have her on tape somewhere. We need to find it, where she said she would be interested in taking on the business at some point.
Oh,
wow.
Really good.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
We are at a stage where we're starting to talk about and seriously think about what are the next steps in our life personally, the life of the business, and then what, if anything, that means for our children.
Well, talk to us about, first of all, ABNA. What does it stand for? Because it is an acronym, everyone. And what does ABNA Engineering do?
So if you talk to my oldest daughter, she'll say that's the acronym for her names. But it actually stands for Abe and Nicole Adewale. We weren't that creative back in the day, so we had to do something. So we are a full-service civil engineering firm with a general contracting arm. And what that means is we can take public infrastructure like bridges, airports, light rail systems, water and wastewater, from inception through design through construction. We have been fortunate enough to work on most of the high-profile projects in the region. Everything from the airport expansion,
I was going to say, you guys have been involved in a lot of different projects.
The new Mississippi River Bridge, we were the construction managers for the Illinois approach. Metrolink expansion, and so much so that about 12 years ago, we decided that we needed to take a lot of the experience from St. Louis to a different marketplace, primarily because we had finished the airport expansion project. And in the aviation industry, you typically go where the work is. And we looked around. We were both Georgia Tech grads. There was from Atlanta, there's a Hartsford airport expansion going on. And then we looked right in our backyard. In Chicago, they had the O'Hare expansions called the O'Hare Modernization Program. And we said, you know what? We need to take all of this resource and transplant it somewhere else. So we took them to Chicago.
You guys are regional now.
Yes.
Y'all are Midwest, not just St. Louis. You guys are Midwest. And guys, I just want you guys to understand from our listeners, this is not a $10 organization. These two folks here grew a business that is a multi-million-dollar organization.
No
That's amazing. And what I really want to touch on too, you guys not only do a lot of work, you all bring interns into your business. Talk to us about that. That's the giving back piece of what you do.
And you see this smile on my face because that's one of the things I'm so proud of. We currently, right now, actually have 2 high school students from Clyde Miller. And because one of the things we really want to do is students who need an internship for their graduation requirements, we make sure to make room for them. We also have a college student from Mizzou who is he's a returning intern, but this is going to be for credit. And we have 4 if you count Hakeem, but we have 3 students who were interns, let's say for at least a full summer, who are full-time employees currently. Wow. And we try to expand that as much as possible. For those who are hearing this and are interested and excited, we do already have 2 interns that were with us last summer that get first pick, but we always take names. And if we can't accommodate students for internship, we also bring students in for a visit, a career visit, particularly students from nearby high schools such as Cardinal Ritter. I interact a lot. I go back to U City and go and speak. And then we also, I know you're familiar with Trina Clark James and the Empower program. To those connections, she and I went to college together.
Oh, wow.
Her late aunt and my mother were best friends. But I really love the Empower program. And for those who are not familiar, who are listening to this, it's a program designed to help minorities to gain entree into the specifically into the IT field, inclusive of cybersecurity, but not so narrow. And so we've done site visits for all of their classes so far, so they can understand, one, what does IT look like in a company like ours, and then also they can see the entrepreneurship aspect.
So on a day-to-day basis, are you both still doing engineering, or has your role really shifted to the role of running the business and orchestrating the expansions and engaging these youth and all of that?
I did some engineering design this week. We're working on a big proposal, which I don't know that I can speak about on here.
But just a biggie.
But it's a big one. And someone was talking about removing a particular interchange. So I worked with one of our engineers and came up with a little sketch plan. So on occasion, he probably does a lot more than I do, because if we run into a snag on a project or we're trying to manage our resources, he will jump in and kind of be what he calls a super project manager and coordinate those things. Sometimes I get engaged as well, but usually my engagement is back to the relationship thing. My engagement is, okay, we need to improve communications on this project. What resource, what connection, what relationship can I bring to bear to help smooth this out or get better connections on this particular project?
So you're still leveraging your strengths in the business, and it's really telling. I mean, Abe, we know you're the technical. You're working on the business, expanding the business, and Nicole, you are the business development woman. I know. Okay.
So when you're sourcing your team, I mean, clearly you have complementary skill sets in that way, and you've made it work. Both the business of business and the business of marriage, which is remarkable and could be a whole show unto itself. But when you're looking at that young talent that you're bringing in as interns and making full-time hires, what kind of skills are you looking for? Because it sounds to me like it's not just about the engineering acumen.
Yeah, so typically we look at young people who have the ability to communicate, walk well in a group setting. You need to bring the technical knowledge base as well. But we've taken chances on people who were not exactly 4.0 students either.
Yeah. Which I think is brilliant, because a lot of those kids get overlooked and they have huge potential. They just haven't connected. You know, why do I have to take this stupid science class to here's the application of that and the opportunity.
And great communicators are very key in our industry. A lot of people think engineers just sit behind a drafting table or a computer and just design all day. But if you can't communicate the concepts, the ideas, you're going to be left behind. And so we want people who can come in, collaborate, understand what the bigger picture is, and be able to work with that team to get to where we want to go.
I was going to add to that is sometimes those 4.0 students are the people who have been so focused on their academics and themselves that they really, they may add something to the team, but they may or may not be a good fit depending on the team that we're bringing them into. And so one of the questions I always ask, and they always look at me funny, but now they've gotten used to it. I say, okay, it's 5:00. There was a meeting earlier in the day, and nobody is left in the office. There's cookies on the floor. There's some juice laying out, some plates and what have you. What do you do? Of course, most people answer it, but I'm looking for how quickly they answer and the quality of the answer as to what they would do. What are you willing to do for the team? On occasion, we get the people who say, well, I'll clean it up and then I'll call the person who left it. That's not a person for us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the can-do attitude.
Absolutely.
Right?
And when, one of the things you touched on was that IDOT was a great place to learn and grow and see opportunities, but because it was so hierarchical that there and wasn't as nimble, that you really needed to leave the organization and to pursue your entrepreneurial passions, but also to seize opportunities. So when folks come to you now and you see that talent, they've got the communication, they've got the technical skills. If I'm working with ABNA and I have an entrepreneurial bent, is there a way that you all are fostering that sort of within your ranks?
Well, we try to live by example. And one of the examples I set at the very onset was that my plan B was that plan A was not going to fail. Okay, and if you go into an adventure with that type of mindset,
yes, there's no out.
You're not
it's like
giving
marriage, right? It's like marriage. Like I told my husband,
110.
there is no out. Okay.
And so when we talk to entrepreneurs who are interested in starting their own thing, you have to be completely dedicated.
Yes,
and let yourself know that you're not going to have a second option at something else. And so if you're that committed, you're going to make sure that something works out.
You'll figure it out, right?
Yeah. To more directly answer your question, though, we have had 3 or 4 people who've left us to go on and found their own businesses. And I wouldn't necessarily say we had systems in place to assist them directly, but I will say that they were afforded opportunities at ABNA to be able to be prepared to do that.
And you guys were great role models because you were entrepreneurs yourself.
Well, and we often talk to folks. Some of our listeners are never going to be entrepreneurs in the sense that they're not going to leave their job and found something from scratch and be the owner of the company. But we talk about being entrepreneurial where you are. Right. And it sounds to me that if I was taking that to heart at ABNA, that there would be a place for me to come to you with new ideas. And if it graduated to the point of leaving and starting my own gig, that you guys support that in the broadest sense of these are really great people who did great work for you and now can go off and do wonderful things in the community.
And when you put it like that, we do have some people who are like that within the organization. One person is now head of a department who had no experience in that particular area, but because she always was looking for ways to improve things where she was, she asked all kinds of questions. We took a chance and put her at the helm of that department. There's a second person that also has the experience, not necessarily the degree set, but we've taken a chance because they've shown their dedication and their mindset. And then we had one employee, we just recently did some renovations in the office. We did like one bathroom a year ago, and we did most of that.
Right.
But we don't have time to go through the whole office and manage paint and all that other kind of things. And initially she came and said, well, can I help with this piece of it? And eventually she took the whole thing on as a project, coordinating the contractor as well as making sure as people needed to move and pick up and pack and all of that kind of stuff, that minimized our disruption to the work, which was critically important. And so from that perspective, we absolutely do encourage people to explore their talents, and we're working on being more strategic about doing more of that with our employees.
Because it helps your business. And when you're creating and growing leadership like that, they might see opportunities you don't see. So if you're creating that, wow, that helps to expand your own opportunities.
Right. And when we're telling folks to think entrepreneurially and to seize those opportunities where they are, it can be really hard to know exactly what those are. And yet you've just given us some real concrete examples of folks being able to live into their fullest potential by seizing those opportunities. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's what I call the business and in business concept. So ABNA is a big enough business that we can have groups and departments and divisions that are their own business entities. And if you give people an opportunity to run those organizations, they could be living their dream as business owners within the conference.
Fantastic.
So even if you're looking for the 9 to 5, the day job, the paycheck, there are ways to look for companies like ABNA where the culture is such that you can thrive there and really live into your own. I think that's an important thing to remind our listeners about.
Absolutely.
As well. So the amazing thing is our time is coming to a close together. So, and there's so many things. I keep writing down notes, and there's so many things I want to talk to you about. But given where our conversation has gone today, are there a few things you want to leave our listeners with in terms of either advice, inspiration, or just things that are important to you all that, we can keep an eye on as you move forward?
Well, I will encourage anybody that's interested in doing business or starting something from ground zero. The same old adage, you have to be willing to go into it with full commitment. You need to make sure that you have a support group or network around you, and you got to leverage your connections.
That is great.
It's very critical that people who can tee up meetings, who can tee up introductions.
Sure.
People like to do business with people they know and like. It's that kilt.
Yeah.
But in order for you to develop it without having done business before, you need to go through those connections to get to the table.
Absolutely.
So, let me ask you this, because this is the last question. I like to always ask, and I think I asked this before when we talked, what do you want to leave as your legacy?
For me, it's service. That was the thing that I was going to write down, that it's important for entrepreneurs to have courage, to have faith, to be willing to sacrifice, but also be willing to serve. And so...
And you do a lot.
I appreciate that. And that's what I wanted to be said about us, that we didn't just build ABNA to make money for ourselves, to make names for ourselves, but that we utilized ABNA's platform to help other people, whether it's to help the people inside of the organization, whether it's making sure that the projects that we do for the public are beneficial to the public, or whether it's going out and serving with the National Society of Black Engineers or Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority or University City School District or First Robotics.
I'm making a face because her sorority is different from my sorority.
Oh, I missed the face, the way we're sitting.
Which also people can't see that I have on a sorority shirt.
She's fully represented.
Yes. But the point is, and all of those organizations are important. And I was brought up in service between my parents, who served in fraternity and sorority, served in their house of worship, with my grandparents who served that community, were very active in the community. I don't know anything else but service. And I want people to know that when you serve others, there's a return that comes back to you. And sometimes serving others or volunteering in the community is in and of itself a way to network and build relationships with very little investment. All you need to do is invest your time.
That's why I always love talking to these two. I mean, I love you guys.
I can't wait to get trapped in an elevator with her.
Oh, my gosh. Because it's not just about your business. I totally agree.
No,
it is about how do you
are.
serve, how do you form community, how do you guys give back, and you do all of that. So I would just want to thank you so much for all that you do.
Yeah, and we're really glad you spent this time with us and that our listeners spent this time with us. And so if you're going to follow folks in the community to see where they go and how they're leading by example, I hope Abe and Nicole are on your list to keep track of and to be connected with, because this has truly been a gift to us to spend time with them all.
How do they find you? What's your website?
So you can go to ABNA Engineering or abnacorp.com. we just Google ABNA. You'll find us on there.
ABNA.
Yes,
so
and you'll find them on our website,
Yes.
and we'll make sure that they should be all over social with us pretty soon.
Absolutely.
So hopefully it'll be really hard to miss. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Absolutely.
Absolute pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurially thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.